love everybody if you would please give a big round of applause, a big heart, okay, to my guest, and that is Marian Grande, and she is a mediator, and she is the founder, right, of dispute resolution. My apologies. And so thank you so much for coming on today. Really, really appreciate that.
Thanks, Jay. Thank you for having me. Hi, everyone.
This is great. And now obviously you have your accreditations. I just would like to welcome you, as I mentioned, but also too, I know that you're a member in good standings of the Family Dispute Resolution Institute of Ontario. You're also an Alternative Dispute Resolution Institute of Ontario, and also with Canada. So we know that you're awesome and that you rock. Okay, so why don't you let everyone know maybe your journey in terms of, why did you choose this particular route? What, made you follow this path? That would be fabulous.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to share my journey. So I have over 17 years of family law experience. Previously, I was a law clerk, and I had seen a lot of people get into a financial mess and get looped up in the court system, and it really, it's very stressful, a lot of sad stories. So I thought that I wanted to do something more geared towards helping people get out of that cycle and getting them into a more resolution-focused mindset. And that's when I became a mediator, and I opened up my mediation practice.
Nice.
And that is really the mentality behind it, is to help people resolve things in a somewhat amicable way, as amicable as possible, depending on the circumstances, which then helps people continue those relationships after they've resolved their matters, such as co-parenting.
And that's really good. And I really appreciate the word when you said amicable, because I think that's a really important word that you just stated. Really. So can maybe you tell us maybe what is a mediator, just in case maybe somebody isn't sure, and a little more about what you do.
Absolutely. So mediator is a third party. So it's a professional who has education in negotiation, mediation, has background about what the dispute is. So in my case would be family. And they're a third party, an unbiased third party who helps you discuss what the issues are and come to a resolution that both parties are happy with.
Nice. That sounds actually probably a bit of a rewarding side to it as well, obviously, because you want to try and come to that peaceful resolution, as you just mentioned. And I would think too, it probably requires quite a bit of patience.
It does, because not everyone goes in with an amicable mindset from the get-go, and it takes a little bit to get there, but definitely the rewards are outstanding, and I really like to see my clients resolve that and move forward and not end up in this really bitter court battle that can last 10 years and people are spending crazy amounts of money having to remortgage their homes. Wow. Where that money could really be used for something else. Something they really want, helping their kids with their education, maybe buying a new home, in better times, taking a vacation. Yes. So all those types of things, and it's possible, I've seen it, and a lot of people may not think mediation works, but it really does work as long as the people going into it have the proper mindset.
That's fabulous. No, I mean, that's really, really true. And as you say, mindset is important. I also know too that you work in many areas. So maybe you could also help our listeners in terms of how do you mediate, for example, under the umbrella of co-parenting?
Yeah, so with co-parenting, I work with the parties and come up with a parenting plan for such things as access, when the access is, which parent gets the child, on which holiday, who holds the passport, how far can you move from the other person, like all those types of things are incorporated into a parenting plan. So those types of issues, we bring everything out on the table, everything's up for discussion, and each parent has a say in what the final outcome is, which is very different from court. And that way, each party is working towards their own resolution. And that really helps, even with the co-parenting, after mediation ends, because if you resolve these things in court, which at the end of the day is really up to a stranger being the judge, and nobody really knows your family like you do.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Nobody knows your family. And I think it's really important that you're the ones making the final decision about your family, because even after a split up, it's still a family.
Yes.
You know, there's the mother and the kids, and there's the father and the kids. So, you know, and, you know, both have to be involved. And it's really important to have a good co-parenting relationship. So we really try and promote that throughout the mediation.
Good. That's nice. That's awesome. Actually, that's really good. And I know, like, I mean, obviously I would think too, it would be incredibly important for the children. They want to make sure, do you know what I'm saying? The process, you want to make it be simple as possible. And as I said, with less disruptions. I think that would be a big key too in those kind of situations with family.
100%.
Yeah. So I also know too that you look at elderly disputes. I find that quite fascinating, actually. Tell us a little bit more under that umbrella.
Yeah, so that is quite interesting, and it's actually one of my favorite areas for mediation. You know, we all have aging parents at some point in our lives, right? And certain decisions have to be made, like long-term care, or should the parents sell the home, downsize. And it gets complicated when you have siblings and everybody has a say, and everybody thinks they know what's best for mom and dad. And mom and dad may be a little stubborn in their views, even about not wanting to sell the home they've been in for 40 years, right? Laughing because you know it's true.
It is true though, right?
It's true. Yeah. And so what we do is we get the family in there discussing these issues. We're going to put together some kind of plan for mom and dad from every aspect, and, you know, helping them downsize if, you know, if everyone's on board with that. Maybe mom and dad are apprehensive, maybe they're scared. They don't know what, you know, what's around the corner, right? They've been there for 40 years. It's all familiar, right? They know the neighborhood, they have their friends, you know, whatever the case may be. And even with long-term care, you know, they may have a certain viewpoint that they want for their life, and the kids may want something else, right? So we kind of try and get those discussions going. And those are very hard discussions for kids to start with their parents if the parents aren't on board, or if the parents aren't the first to kind of throw the first stone out there to kind of start the discussion, right? It's also things like funeral arrangements. Nobody likes to think of those things, but maybe mom and dad have something in their heart they want, and the kids either aren't aware of it, or maybe they don't agree with it. But it's really important to have those discussions as a family and come to a resolution as a family. So that's a really, really important area for mediation. Not a lot of people are aware that elder mediation exists, but I find it's really important for families on a whole.
Yeah, for sure. Like as I mentioned, when I checked out the site, I was like, well, this is interesting, because again, I didn't think, you know, it's like, what do you mean you wouldn't agree with what I think?
Yeah.
Right. You know, especially if you have the siblings, because you think, you know, everyone would understand that way, or this would be the best way, or whatever, right? And yeah, right. And then looking too in terms of, well, I have been in my house for 40 years. It would be scary, right? And I think going to somebody who could help mediate like yourself would be huge advantage. So creating that awareness is a big deal, really a big deal.
Yeah, because there's a lot that goes into that whole aging process, right? You've got the mentality, it's hard for some people, right? The emotional, you've got the financial, you've got the health. It's right, it encompasses so many different aspects of someone and someone's life.
Yes.
That you want to be respectful of mom and dad because it's their life, but you also want to be respectful of the siblings who may know what's good for mom and dad at the same time. So it's an equal balance, I find.
Yeah. No, and again, it's just a very, very, very important piece that people need to be aware of. So,
Yeah.
and I guess too, in, you know, in that under umbrella or separate umbrella, right, would be the estates and the wills, and making sure that everyone is respectful. So give us a little more on that insight.
Yeah, so that's more of a sadder area, I find.
Mm-hmm.
People are in dispute of a will or an estate. Maybe someone's an executor, and maybe siblings may not agree with who mom and dad chose, and or they may not agree how the estate's being dispersed. They may not agree that it's taking a long, long time. There's so many challenges in that area, right? That it's so hard to talk about because it's really all these different angles. And so what we do is we get the people who are involved in the dispute or not agreeing into coming in and discussing what the dispute is, and again, finding a solution. It's all about discussion. It's all about communication. And when people are, they're in such an odd state of mind, they're grieving, they may be upset because the will wasn't the way you wanted it to be, or, you know, the estate isn't moving along at the pace you want it to be. So all these things, and people get so angry at the other person very quickly that they think maybe the other person is trying to do something underhanded, and that may not be the case. And if we don't get into a discussion and really putting it out there, you may not know the whole story. So it's just like any discussion. You really need to sit there and listen when the other person's speaking and understand where they're coming from and why.
And that would be, yeah, again, important, because if somebody's angry at someone else, or they don't understand how long it takes for an estate to go through the process financially or whatever the breakdown is, yeah, I can see why, again, having a mediator would be really, really important, because last thing you want to do is have siblings suddenly hate each other for the next 25 years or whatever, because of something, right? I was promised this little thing, right? So,
exactly. It could be something so small that, you know, we're not talking about millions of dollars, although that could be the case.
Yes.
I find often it's the smallest thing, you know, or, you know, a lot of times mom and dad felt that maybe one child needed help more, so left, I don't know, 60% of the house, right?
Right.
And 40% to the other, and now there's a dispute there, right? So it's getting in there, really discussing it, and it's such a feelings-based mediation.
Sure.
You know, and because people are angry when they get to that point, they're angry about either what was left to them, the estate's not moving quick enough, you're not selling the house, you know what I mean? All those things and it just builds up and people come very angry.
Yeah. So as you said, communication would be huge, and then just trying to make everyone aware of the process, right? Yeah, trying to get there. And and really relating to how they feel. Grieving is a big piece. And if they don't even recognize themselves that they're in a grieving state, right, that could be an issue.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I know too that you also look at areas such as business as well. So so what does that mean in terms of like being a mediator in a business issue?
So things like a contract dispute.
Oh, okay.
You know, things like that. Maybe something's not clear in the contract. Maybe somebody didn't fulfill their obligation under the contract 100%, or there's just deficiencies in the work they may have done. Right. So the other person says, I'm not paying you because this work is deficient, right? You see that a lot when people are doing renovations, or someone had a pool put in or paid someone to do their fence, right? So the work is deficient, and the other person feels that they're not entitled to 100% of what was agreed on from a monetary standpoint
Okay.
because the work is deficient. So we try and get in there and see what the deficiencies are, either try and rectify those deficiencies so that that person can get paid, or we try and come up with a different resolution.
Okay. I was going to say that subject alone might keep you pretty darn busy.
Yeah. And, you know, then we get into things like liens.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? Because there's construction liens that can be placed, and you don't really want to get stuck in that. I've done work in construction liens, and it's not a good place to be. So if we can reach a resolution before we get to that gate of lien, right, it is better for everybody concerned.
Yeah, that makes sense. So interesting, really, right? Really, really interesting. So now I know that obviously COVID, for example, is, you know, different world currently. Now, has that caused issues for yourself? Are you online?
Yeah, so I do Zoom mediations.
Okay, good.
As well as we're still doing in-person mediations depending on what the situation is.
Okay.
But by far, you know, we're trying to really promote the Zoom mediations during this time, just as a matter of safety for everybody concerned.
Yeah, and again, that makes sense, right? So, like, do you work only in Ontario?
No, I will work across Canada with the exception of Quebec.
Okay, good. So you're pretty open right across there. That's excellent too, right? People can, you know, you can help anybody over there. That's excellent. So,
exactly.
Yeah, in terms of the overall picture of everything, pardon me, let's just maybe recap in terms of the benefits that you could provide someone as a mediator in any of these circumstances. Like, why would I want to go to yourself, which I think you're lovely and you do a great job, versus say the proceedings of court?
So many things. Court is public record, especially when you're talking about a divorce and separation. These are very sensitive issues, and it's public record. Anyone can get that information. Whereas mediation is private, it's confidential, it doesn't go beyond the boardroom, so to speak. Right, that's a big one.
Right.
Number two is mediation is about 75% cheaper than a court proceeding.
Like that.
So that's a big savings. Nobody wants to have to spend more money on legal aid if they don't have to.
Right.
Also, 80 to 85% of family law mediations end up in a settlement. So that's huge, right? So we know right there that mediation works. And also court is very stressful. I don't know if you've been to court or if any of the viewers have, court is extremely stressful. And if you get tied into that bitter court battle, so to speak, it doesn't make for a good relationship after the fact, especially if it's a divorce and separation situation. And also I've had clients tell me that it takes anywhere from 2 to 10 years to get to trial. I have had people stuck in trial waiting for trial for 10 years, and they've spent over $100,000 for their divorce. So that's a lot of money, a lot of time. I would think in this situation, if you're separating, you want to move on and move on with your life, right? With some money in your pocket, number one, and move on completely instead of having to go to all these court attendances and dealing with the other side over and over again. 10 years is a long time.
Drawn out. That's hugely drawn out. Yeah. And as you mentioned, stress over that time period. It's like, wow. And I think too, if you're going into court, you wouldn't even necessarily know the total outcome.
This is it. And I kind of touched on that before when I said like a stranger makes your decision. The judge is a stranger. And like I said earlier, he doesn't know your family. It's always nice to have a say in the outcome when it's affecting your life.
For sure.
Right. You don't want it. The other thing with court is I find it's either win or lose. Either the judge sides with you or he does not side with you. There's really no in between. Mediation, there is that in between. And that's what I strive for, to get both people to reach the middle, and let's decide together a solution that works for everybody concerned. What are your thoughts? What are your views? What would you like the decision to be? And let's go from there. So I think that's really important. I find there's so many benefits to mediation, it goes far beyond the financial.
Yes, it sounds
Although
like
the financial's nice, right?
Right. Yes, financial is nice. If you can save yourself, as you mentioned, a lot.
It's a lot, yeah.
That would be huge. And I would think just in terms of your health, right? If you can get rid of some of that stress, if you can compromise, there's a big word, let's compromise and come to a solution in a more peaceful way. That would be just better for all parties involved, especially again, bouncing into if you have children. So the kids don't need to be dragged through that kind of stuff either.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it
Right.
gets stressful for everybody.
Yeah.
And nobody comes out of court a winner. Like even if you are the winner,
Right.
nobody, and judges tell you over and over again, before you go to court, try mediation, because if it works, it's huge.
Yeah, it would be. That would be, I can imagine, right?
Yeah.
So I find this incredibly fascinating. You certainly opened my eyes in terms of, what is available, what, even the topics themselves. So I hope everyone else has found that quite fascinating. Now, is there anything else that you would like to add in terms of, just anything moving forward?
Yeah, you know what? Everybody, the first thing they think about when there's a legal problem is court. Right away, everyone says, I'm going to court. I'm going to sue you. I'm going to take you to court. It gets very ugly very quickly. And I just want to reiterate that, if you do your research, and you will see that many of the judges actually say nobody wins. Like, it's very sad at the end of the day. Yeah. So it's, resolve your matter quickly, resolve it cost efficiently, call a mediator. Mediator can help you resolve either all the issues or a portion of the issues. So even if you can't get there with all of the issues, most of the issues will be resolved. Nice.
Yeah, that's a big deal. Like I said, just a big deal right then and there, which is very, very cool. So I certainly appreciate that. You know what I would love to do? I would love to do a countdown. Okay, go 3, 2, 1 and give you a high five right into my camera. Is that cool?
Yeah, that's cool.
Okay, so in 3, 2, 1, here I go. Boom, baby.
Awesome.
That's fabulous. And folks, you know what, I'm going to go back into, I'm going to post Marion's all her information and all her detail, so you can, connect with her very, very easily. And the one thing I just popped into my mind too is the consultations. You have consultations, right? And they're free, correct? Yeah. So initial consultations with me are free, so you can get all the information you need, ask your questions about mediation, and that's really all there is to it. Well, no, and that's important, right? Yeah. Because you want to make sure you have a connection and you can sort of relate to, right, in terms of the relationship and making sure moving forward it makes sense for you. So I think that's excellent. So thank you again, Marion, so much for coming in and just helping us out and explain a little more about what you do, because it's an important topic. Really, really, it's an important topic. Okay, so we're going to give you jazz hands and say thank you. Okay. So hashtag collaboration is cool. Okay. Hashtag absolute resolution, dispute resolution. Hashtag mediation. Is there anything else you'd like to add? Family law. Family law, yeah. Thank you so much, Jay, for having me today. It's been lovely. And if anyone's going through anything, please reach out. Let's have a discussion and see if we can help you. Yes, absolutely. She's the one you want to talk to. Thank you. Take care. Cheers. Thank you.